Hello, and welcome to What's Going On, a new segment in which myself, SC Wickett, and Michael Curzon discuss the issues that don't quite make it to print. Michael, we're here to discuss a bizarre symbiosis between the dating app sphere and the push to get the young people to take the vaccine. So, Michael, what's going on here?
Well, you're right. It's probably the strangest development yet. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, there were news reports on if you catch COVID, then you'll develop erectile dysfunction. This is one of the latest scare stories. A desperate effort to try and persuade people essentially that COVID is the worst thing that can happen to you, and the best thing you can possibly do ever is get vaccinated against COVID. And so, yes, the latest ploy to push, especially young people, into getting vaccinated, despite, by the way, the fact that when polled, around 85% of people, even between the age of 25 and 30, who are the latest to be called up for a jab, say that they're going to take it anyway. But regardless, they put in these ploys, and the latest one is a deal between dating apps and the government, which allows users of dating apps to put a badge on their profile which says, "I've been vaccinated." And of course, my first reaction when I saw this was to laugh. You almost go, for goodness sake, that this is the next move. And they even admit that it's a ploy. Basically, Matt Hancock tweeted, "Another reason to get the jab." It's just every time it's a desperate sort of plea for people to get it in. But yes, that is the latest one. And I think we can go into the sort of more sinister implications of this in a moment. But what was your first reaction then, Sam?
Well, yeah, the first thing is as someone who doesn't use Tinder, I sort of I kind of laughed. I thought, who's gonna? But then I realized it does. I kind of can't, sort of give an overview and then go into the insidious part because from the outset it's quite insidious.
Mm.
It's as you were saying before we recorded, Michael. It now gives people like chance to immediately reject someone who isn't vaccinated. Um,
Whether that be for medical reasons,
yeah,
personal
sure.
choice, whatever, it doesn't matter.
There are some absolutely justified reasons to not want to date someone who isn't vaccinated if you're, immunocompromised. But then, surely by that point you'd be vaccinated. So anyway, it does still feed into a culture of pressure to. I've had, I've lost track of the amount of times I've been talking to somebody and immediately I've been sort of put on the spot if I'm going to take this thing or not.
Yeah.
And it is tempting just to sort of say you are just to get it over with because
Well, I
it's
have done it in the shop that I worked at a number of times. No point saying otherwise.
either that or you're part of a clinical trial and you're the you're the Y group. But
Ah, that's a good idea.
yeah, no, it's people who are very in favor of this thing are saying, oh, it's not mandatory, it's just people can make a choice. Well, it's like the thing again, it goes back to the same thing with a myriad of other areas of society where it's like, oh, you can not take it, but if you want to, do X, not do a whole list of things, you have to have it. So now dating is, you can choose to not take it, but your life will be hindered because of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, the press reporting around this, as always, has been absolutely the wrong way round. Their reporting is focused on the fact that when dating, you can see who else has been vaccinated. But that isn't the point of this. The point is exactly the reverse.
Mm.
It's for someone to find out who hasn't been vaccinated and to instantly reject them
Mm.
on that basis.
Mm.
I mean, I usually would criticize these kind of apps anyway. I think it's sort of the antithesis of dating. But given that the government has forced people to remain in their houses and cut out all social backgrounds, as well as, of course, if you want to go deeper, supported a woke agenda, which makes it more difficult for men to approach women in dating scenarios anyway. I sort of understand why people are going to these platforms. And then as soon as they do, they give in some of their principles to go on these things. It's made even more difficult by the fact that they're basically being forced to put on this badge of honor, apparently, which if they don't have they're less likely to be dated. I mean, just quickly for context, the reason the government on its website says it's done this is because it was looking at the results of a recent YouGov poll, which said that 31% of adults would prefer to date someone who was vaccinated, and 28% said they wouldn't date somebody unless they had been vaccinated. So this is the basis of this.
Okay, so
Basically,
it's a split majority of opinion then.
yes, exactly. Now,
Okay.
thankfully, a minority, but still 28% of people, if this is a true figure, this is YouGov after all, but regardless, almost 30% of people wouldn't date someone who hasn't had a vaccine.
Well, but again, it being YouGov kind of like it kind of puts a doubt on it because YouGov you have to go out of your way to fill in a survey.
Yeah.
So someone who will go on there is more likely to have something to say about the matter.
Hmm.
So by default, they're more likely to either go in with a preference for or a complete rejection against anyone who isn't vaccinated. So someone who's a bit more easygoing on the matter wouldn't bother.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it always made me laugh during the Dominic Cummings testimony that apparently, I think it's something like 60%. It says 60% of the British population is closely following the Dominic Cummings testimony. I thought, what a load of nonsense. It must be around 3%, most of whom are on Twitter or write for newspapers. Beyond that, people either didn't care, didn't know, or watched one headline and then turned off. So yeah, always skewed these things.
Yeah.
But I must say, I do actually, in this case, think if anything, that statistic might be underrepresented because when you see reports, I've written some for Lockdown Skeptics recently and for Bournbrook about what's called COVID anxiety syndrome. People who are terrified to return to normal life, to start hugging again, to go to areas where people socialize, to not wear masks. The percentages are really, really high. And an independent poll yesterday, that is a poll for the newspaper, The Independent, put the figures even higher. Around 65% of people don't want to stop distancing, don't want to stop wearing masks. So I can well believe that a similar proportion of people also wouldn't want to associate, never mind date, with somebody who hasn't been vaccinated. So yes, that's the point. As you said, it's another way of trying to push people into taking the vaccine to try and put them as a separate foreign individual within society, not part of that society, so as to make them think if they want to have a normal life again and be respected by others, they have to do this thing.
Yeah, the mechanisms of quote unquote mandatory vaccination in quotes don't really need to come from the state. They can just society's kind of doing it itself.
Yeah.
And kind of what this does is again it's like you can not take the vaccine if you don't want to, but everyone will know you haven't.
And I think that's what's going on.
That is what's going on. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. I'm sure this story will develop further, and we'll do more what's going on in the next couple of weeks, presumably around again the conscious attempt to ostracize anyone who isn't vaccinated. That is what was going on. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.